People love animals. That's just an undeniable fact. People all over the world have kept hundreds of different kinds of pets throughout the years and have even tried taming wild animals in order to make them friendlier to people. All this is to say that a lot of the times when somebody sees an animal that needs help, their natural instinct is to step in and do something for it. There have been plenty of cases of this caught on camera, of course, and they are generally quite heartwarming videos. From a sloth being saved in the middle of the road to a penguin swimming 5,000 miles to meet its savior. There are some truly beautiful moments that have been captured. Make sure to stick around until the end. You wouldn't want to miss a chimp thanking Jane Goodall. Here are 15 times caring people saved animals without expecting anything in return. Number 15. Kangaroo saved from fire. Australia is a region often known for its bushfires, and this is no exception. This kangaroo was recused from a fire by a woman nearby and was eventually brought in to receive care for its burns. The woman, who has not been named, brought the animal to the Animal Emergency Service in Brisbane, where it was cared for. Luckily, this kangaroo didn't suffer too much damage and was released back into the wild after its recovery. It is thought that the fire was started by a lightning strike and quickly spread through the area. Because of how dry the region is, it didn't take long for the fire to spread and put the lives of many animals in danger. Luckily, this kangaroo was one of the lucky ones and made it out alive. There are several groups in Australia that work to rescue animals from these bushfires, and they are always in need of donations. Australia will very likely always struggle with issues related to fires, so these groups will be needed in the years to come, especially as climate damage worsens. Number 14. Nora the dog. You may have seen Nora the dog on the news a little while back, considering the case received fairly widespread attention. She was rescued from a puppy mill and transferred to the Humane Society of Greater Dayton to find a new home. Her story was widely reported, mostly because she was so malnourished and underweight. However, the Humane Society of Greater Dayton wanted to make clear that she was in no way neglected, and she was not going to be put down. The Humane Society posted on their Facebook page on March 17th, despite what some media outlets are suggesting, Nora does not need to be euthanized. We are doing everything we can to save her life. We have a medical and behavioral team working around the clock to care for her. Now Nora the dog has found her forever home, and she is doing amazing. Her new owner, Amy Ayers, told WDTN she's doing amazing. She's gained 8 pounds since she's been here, and she's so sweet and loving. She is also very quickly bonded to Amy's 7-month-old son and is likely getting all the love in the world. Number 13. Sloth saved from the road. Sloths seem to have a habit of ending up in the worst situations. This one can be seen in the middle of the road, where it's rescued by a kind man who is driving through the area. He can be seen gently picking up the sloth and placing it on a tree on the other side of the road. Sloths are often known for their slow movements and can be found high up in trees. When they end up on the ground, they are often unable to get back up. If you see a sloth on the ground, it is best to call a professional, as they may not be able to get back up on their own. While they are generally not dangerous, it is still better to call a professional because they are capable of carrying several diseases. Regardless, this man did the right thing by rescuing the sloth and placing it on a tree where it would be safe, rather than leaving it in the middle of the road. It can even be seen waving at him when he walks away, as though it was saying thank you. Number 12. Koala saved from bushfire. As mentioned earlier in the video, Australia suffers heavily from bushfires. Many animals are put in danger by these fires, with one of the most endangered being the koala. In this video, a woman can be seen rescuing a koala from a bushfire and bringing it back towards her truck, where she pours water on its hands in order to attempt to help with the burns. She also has water bottles in the back of the truck and gives the koala water to drink. The woman then drives the koala away from the fire and to safety. It was taken to a wildlife hospital where it was treated for its injuries. Luckily, they were minor enough that it was able to be released back into the wild after only a couple of weeks. Koalas are fairly slow creatures and tend to remain in the same place for long periods of time, meaning that fires are particularly dangerous for them. If they don't get out of the way in time, they are very likely to perish in the flames. Number 11. Man saves baby condor. Condors are massive birds of prey and often aren't thought of as being the friendliest animals out there. Despite this, within this video, a condor can be seen hugging the man who saved it. The man in the video, who we don't know the name of, is a volunteer at a wildlife rehabilitation center in Argentina. The video was uploaded to YouTube several years ago, but it still receives lots of attention every year. The video begins with the man walking toward the camera and then walking into the cage of the condor. He then sits down on the ground and calls for the bird, which comes over to him as though it recognizes his voice. The condor then puts its head on the man's shoulder and gives him a hug while wrapping its wings around the man. It's a truly touching gesture and shows just how intelligent many of these birds are. The man then stands up and walks away from the condor, which follows him. The man then turns around and gives the condor one final hug before walking out of the cage. This video is absolutely amazing, and it just goes to show that even the most ferocious animals can be tamed with a little bit of love. Number 10. Owl hugs man who saved her. It's always cute to see how grateful some animals are when they are rescued, and that's definitely the case for this owl. She can be seen hugging the man who saved her from near death, and it's impossible not to tear up a little at the sight. The owl was rescued in the early morning hours after being huddled on the side of the road. The bird was later taken to the Wild at Heart Rescue Center and was named after the man who saved her, Doug. Knowing that the owl was still very young and had to be fed,
It's amazing, huh?
they asked Doug to come back and help her out. He obliged and came in at 4 a.m. every single day to feed the owl and help her recover. After weeks of this, Doug went in to feed the owl one morning and she was no longer scared of him. She greeted him with big hugs and Doug was overjoyed. Animals can have so much personality, and seeing one so comfortable with people is always a wonderful sight. Number 9. Cow rescued from mud. Cows are quite heavy and quite clumsy animals, which means they have a tendency to get themselves stuck. That was the case with this particular cow, who ended up stuck in a large patch of mud. Luckily, the farmer who owns the cow was there to help. The farmer, who is from Trowbridge in Wiltshire, UK, managed to get the cow out of the mud by using a tractor to pull it out. The farmer and his team were able to get the cow out of the mud in less than 2 hours. The farmer said that the cow was not injured and that it was able to walk away safely despite being spooked. He added that the cow was probably stuck in the mud for around 2 hours before he was able to get it out. It's good that the farmer was able to get the cow out of the mud so quickly, because if it hadn't been found quickly, it likely would have succumbed to hypothermia sooner rather than later. Number 8. Rescued deer fawn gets adopted. Because deer are so widely hunted, it's inevitable that there will be several baby deer that end up stranded. It's terribly sad, but it's unfortunately the way the world works. Luckily, this particular baby deer was found and adopted by a kind man who brought it back to his house. He didn't think twice about it and took it in, even though he knew the odds of it surviving were pretty low. The baby deer was extremely weak and was malnourished. It had little energy and would barely move. The man did what he could to help the deer, and he gave it everything he had. He fed it and watered it and gave it plenty of rest. The deer grew to be comfortable with him and would even lay with him on the couch or in bed during the nights. The man didn't give up on the deer, and eventually it started to improve. The deer got stronger and began to walk. It even started to play with the man's dog. Once it made a full recovery, the man let it back out into the woods, but it didn't stay gone for long. The two had formed such a strong bond that it tends to prefer being within his house despite having healed. Number 7. Elk thanks firefighters. When fires spread throughout a region, people aren't the only ones affected. The animals are the ones that are losing their home and everything that they know. And so when people put out fires, they are often thankful. That was the case with this elk, who was spotted after a fire in the Rocky Mountain National Park had been put out. The elk was seen in the park after the fire was extinguished, and it was roaming around a little bit. The elk was a bit hesitant to leave the area of the fire, but it eventually did. The fire had burned a large part of the park, and so the elk had to find a new home. Before leaving, it walked up to a couple of the firefighters and thanked them for their help by giving them a couple kisses. Elk are generally not this friendly, so it's particularly strange to see this one acting so nice to these people. It must really just be appreciative that it gets to live another day. Number 6. Dog rescued from cave. Gary Keene and his friend Rick Haley were exploring a cave 500 feet below ground when they heard a dog. They didn't expect this, of course, and decided to find out what was making the noise. They followed the sound and found that it was coming from a hole in the ground, which led deeper into the cave. When they looked into the hole, they saw a small dog. The dog was terrified and couldn't get out. Jerry and Rick decided to help the dog and went back to the surface to get some help. They found a rope and went back down to the hole. Jerry lowered a duffel bag on the rope with the intention of climbing down and putting the dog inside, but was surprised when the dog happily climbed inside by itself. The two were able to pull the dog up and get it back to the surface, where they eventually were able to locate the owners. The dog, named Abby, had gone missing almost 2 months ago. It's unknown how long she was in the cave, and she's very lucky to have survived that long. Before we go on, do like this video, smash that subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face while you're sleeping. It's time for today's subscriber pick. This adorable photograph was taken in the middle of a park in Minnesota and showcases a family of squirrels all bunched up together near the base of the tree. Several kids in the area were even able to get close enough to pet a couple of the squirrels, which were remarkably docile and didn't seem to mind the attention. The Parks and Wildlife Service was eventually called because the behavior was quite strange, but the squirrels didn't seem to be harmed or in any sort of danger. Within an hour or so, they even scampered back up the tree towards the top of it, apparently having had their fill of adventure for the day. Why do you think these squirrels were so interested in humans? Would you pet a wild squirrel if the opportunity ever presented itself? Remember to comment down below with the hashtag #subscriberpick and let us know what you think. Now, on to the next topic. Number 5. Lion saved from trap. Lions are very unfortunately a common victim of poaching due to the prestige that comes with their pelts. Luckily, there are many people that dedicate their lives to rescuing lions from poaching traps. This lion was found in a snare trap in Kenya and was rescued by the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. When the animal was found, he had been caught for 2 days, and the snare was so tight it had started to eat through his flesh. The lion, named Mwashati, was taken to the DSWT and is now being treated for his injuries. The organization will continue to monitor him until he's made a full recovery. Lion poaching is a huge issue within Africa, and people are only now beginning to take it more seriously as lions become more endangered. There are several organizations now popping up in order to combat poaching within Africa, and hopefully they'll be able to make a difference over the next several years. Number 4. Man makes friend with swan. TV presenter Richard Weiss, who was walking through the Abbotsbury Nature Preserve, saw a swan that got stuck in a hedge and could not get out on her own. When the man rescued the bird, she hugged him with her long, flexible neck as a sign of gratitude and clung to the man trustfully. He managed to take the swan out of the hedge, and the bird immediately rushed to a small pond, after giving him that hug, not noticing anyone else. The video of the touching meeting of the hero and the swan quickly went viral and received more than 1.5 million views. Internet users were delighted with the man's courage and kindness, and also noted that swans are really very affectionate and kind creatures. This is not the common opinion of swans because if you've ever seen one in action, you know they can be quite violent creatures. It just goes to show how thankful this one was to be saved. Number 3. Penguin swims 5,000 miles. Penguins are adorable and very intelligent creatures and are known to remember the faces of people that they've met throughout their life. This is a story about Jing, the South American Magellanic penguin, who swims 5,000 miles each year to be reunited with the man who saved his life. The rescued penguin was saved by Joa Pereira de Souza, a 73-year-old part-time fisherman who lives in an island village just outside Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Joa found the tiny penguin at his local beach lying on rocks where it was absolutely covered in oil and could hardly move. If it had been left alone for just a few more hours, it very likely would have died. Joa cleaned the oil off the penguin's feathers and fed him a daily diet of fish to build his strength. He named the penguin Jing. Every year, the penguin leaves to return to its breeding grounds and then always returns to Joa. It's a wonderful, heartwarming story and just showcases how kind and caring some animals can be. Number 2. Bella the squirrel. Hurricanes often result in destruction of many trees in an area, and that can mean that baby squirrels are knocked out of their nests. That was the case for Bella, who was discovered as a baby and rescued by a human woman. She was brought into the woman's home and cared for until she was big enough to be released. Bella was released into the wild, but she wasn't ready to be on her own. She missed her human mom and was looking for a way back into the house. One day, Bella showed up at the door of the same woman who had rescued her as a baby and was looking for a way in. She was welcomed back into the house and given a second chance to be raised by the woman who had cared for her from the beginning. Bella is now a happy and healthy squirrel who is living in the house with her human mom. She loves to play and has even learned how to climb the curtains. She is a very special squirrel with a very special story. Number 1. Chimp thanks Jane Goodall. If you're at all familiar with chimps, then you've definitely heard of Jane Goodall. She is practically the only authority on their behavior and is well known to be loved by the peculiar animals. Within this video, one of the chimps in her care is being released, and she's crying tears of happiness because it's healthy enough to go out on its own. The chimp, named Wunda, was rescued back in 2004 and had been in need of rehabilitation ever since then. The chimp was released into the wild in 2013 and was seen crying as Jane let it go back out into the woods. Whether or not this was in happiness or sadness is unknown, but it was an emotional moment for both Goodall and Wunda. Since then, Wunda has done quite well for herself and has even become the mother of a new baby chimp. Goodall has been keeping tabs on her and has been happy to see that she's doing so well. Which of these things do you think are the most heartwarming? Do you think people will ever fully understand just how kind human beings can be, or how loving animals can be when shown just a bit of kindness? Tell us in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps us to understand what kind of topics you enjoy, and that way we can tell what kind of videos you'd like to see next. Tap that bell icon if you love to learn new things, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.